I'm incredibly disappointed in Kyrie Irving right now.
Kyrie has proven to all of us that he's not a leader.
I think Kyrie Irving should retire. I think he should announce his retirement today. Clearly, you don't want to play basketball bad enough.
He got it at the buzzer! Wow. Irving and Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good! Kyrie Irving from downtown! Kyrie, a bomb! Oh! Straight fire!
Don't bring your personal emotions in here. Come on now. Come on now. Come on now, puppeteers.
Kyrie Irving's career began with high expectations of becoming one of the most transcendent players the league had to offer. Picked number 1 in 2011, Irving was envisioned as the heir to LeBron James's throne, the new star and savior of Cleveland. He certainly met those expectations, slowly climbing up the ranks each season, putting Cavaliers basketball back on the map with his unreal highlights. When LeBron James returned to Cleveland in 2014, Irving had to take a back seat and watch how the king took all of the attention, but to onlookers, this didn't matter. The duo made the finals 3 straight times, even cracking a victory in 2016. With legacy-defining moments for number 23 and number 2. Kyrie Irving was just 24 years old when he won the finals in 2016, and had just put up elite stats, out-dueling the unanimous MVP on the biggest stage in basketball. If you asked any observer at the time, they'd tell you that Kyrie was laying down an MVP path, with many more possible rings as a Cavalier awaiting him. What followed this unwavering confidence was anger. Just 1 season later, Irving demanded out of Cleveland. Once those headlines were announced to the NBA world, confusion and misconceptions surrounding Kyrie's personality began spreading. Some doubted his motivation to win, or assumed that there was beef brewing between the King and Uncle Drew. Nonetheless, he arrived in Boston, and just like in Cleveland, it appeared to be a match made in heaven. Irving dazzled the fans in TD Garden on a nightly basis, but once the rose-colored glasses were removed, Kyrie found himself in another upsetting situation. Just a little under 2 years after putting on a Celtics uniform, he wanted out, departing in free agency to Brooklyn. Kyrie had now gone from satisfied to frustrated on 2 different teams. But why did this happen? Why did he inevitably grow distressed in Cleveland and Boston? And what were the reasons for him wanting out? On his 3rd team in Brooklyn, Kyrie had the chance to play with his best friend in Kevin Durant, and a former MVP in James Harden. Despite a golden opportunity with one of the most dominant big threes in NBA history, rumors revolving around the relationship between Harden and Irving rose, with the Beard eventually wanting out in just under a year. To critics, it would appear that wherever Kyrie goes, destruction ensues. But is that really the case? How much of the blame for the drama surrounding him is his fault, and could these collapses have been prevented? This is how Kyrie Irving became the most polarizing player in the NBA. The first chapter to this story begins in the 2010-2011 NCAA season, where Kyrie was one of the top prospects at Duke University. Irving played just 11 games at Duke, only starting 8 of them, but in that time, he was elite. He put up 17.5 points per game on 52% from the field, and 46% from 3. Irving had a phenomenal finishing ability and a smooth jump shot that could burn any defense. But those compliments didn't come without its fair share of negativity. Kyrie's athleticism was below average, and critics weren't sure if his talent could carry into the NBA with how little games he played in college. He played 11 games at Duke due to a toe injury he sustained in December of 2010. Nonetheless, the 2011 draft was a 2-man race for the top slot, Kyrie Irving and Derek Williams were both neck and neck. Williams was far more athletic and appeared more NBA ready than Irving was. Scouts eventually settled on Kyrie being the best pick. His comparisons to Deron Williams and Chris Paul were just too good for the Cavs to skip on. On June 23, 2011, the Cleveland Cavaliers chose Kyrie Irving number 1 overall. Kyrie was the perfect player to take over the city of Cleveland that was left in desolation following the departure of LeBron James. LBJ had left previously in the summer of 2010, which turned him into a hated villain in Cleveland. Irving arriving could instill a winning culture back into an organization that needed it, and he was up for the task. The 2011-2012 season was highlighted by Kyrie's epic rookie campaign, where he exploded onto the scene with an 18 points per game average on 40% from 3. The stats may have been exciting, but watching Irving practice his craft on the court was an entirely different story. His dribble moves produced some of the most iconic ankle breakers in NBA history. He shot 49% on 2-point shots, with 5 dimes and 1 steal per game. Those stats were solid, but what was more impressive was his feel for the game in crunch time. Kyrie had multiple moments throughout his rookie year where he came up clutch, most notably against the Celtics, where he spun into a smooth layup to win it with 2 seconds left. It was quickly becoming apparent that Irving was different, and fans were already raving about his limitless potential. He was rewarded for this fantastic first season with the Rookie of the Year award, an esteemed accomplishment for the promising guard. Irving was gaining fame as well, earning the nickname Uncle Drew for his acting as a character in Pepsi commercials. On the other hand, when it came to the Cavs, Kyrie's stats didn't lead to wins. The team went 4-28 in the final 32 to finish with 21 wins out of 66 games. Kyrie played 51 games out of 66 and missed 9 straight games towards the end of the season with lingering shoulder issues. These minor injury problems weren't making fans nervous just yet. What really made fans anxious was the upcoming offseason. The Cavaliers earned the 4th pick in the 2012 draft lottery, choosing Dion Waiters at that spot. Cleveland hoped that he and Irving could be the 1-2 punch that could revitalize Cavs basketball, and fans were hyped. The 2012-13 season is when Kyrie Irving really began stamping his name as one of the most popular players in the league. He earned his first All-Star appearance at the age of 20. Kyrie was now a 22 points per game scorer, shooting 4 more times on average, on 6 dimes with 4 rebounds. One stat that wasn't tracked was Irving's handles, and if that was a category, he'd be number 1. Kyrie was a magician with the basketball, adding countless victims to his collection of his mean ankle breakers, most notably coming in the 2013 Rising Stars game. In this game, Kyrie took a fellow guard, Brandon Knight, on an ISO and won the battle, turning his ankles into dust and drilling the jumper. Irving was no longer a young player that had Cavs fans excited. No, Kyrie had the world excited and was building a massive following that was entranced by his incredible highlights. These iconic performances continued just a few weeks later, where in a road game against the Raptors, the sophomore put on a show. Kyrie Irving scored 32 points in a come-from-behind win, hitting a cluster of clutch shots down the stretch. With 10 seconds left, a 20-year-old Irving calmly brought the ball up the court and rose up for a 24-foot bomb that smoked the net and won the game for the Cavs. An unbelievably clutch shot. Kyrie was built for this moment. This was his team, and he was willing to do whatever it took to win. However, the Cavs organization hadn't done the best job surrounding him with the talent needed to grab more wins. The team won a measly 24 games. Why? The culprit for these L's lied in Irving suffering yet another shoulder injury that ended his season. The Cavaliers lost momentum as a result of this, going 4-20 in their final 24 to earn another lottery ticket. The 2013 draft lottery saw the Cavs enter with 15% odds of getting the number 1 slot, yet by pure luck, the Cavs got the number 1 pick for the second time in 3 seasons. They drafted UNLV power forward Anthony Bennett with the first pick. A shocking selection, as Bennett wasn't even projected to go top 5 in many mock drafts. Regardless, Bennett would be another high pick to add to the Cavs' growing collection, and fans hoped he and Dion Waiters would evolve into stars. This upcoming season saw Kyrie enter as a fan favorite, but the overwhelming support saw a few lingering concerns emerge from the smoke. Kyrie had already missed 25% of his total career games so far due to injury. Not only did he need to continue producing on the court, but he needed to shake off the injury-prone label. The 2013-14 season saw both of these goals being achieved. Kyrie played 71 out of 82 games, a solid improvement, and his stats remained elite. Irving scored 21 a game and earned his second straight All-Star appearance, but things weren't going smoothly in Cleveland. Rumors surrounding beef involving Dion Waiters and Kyrie began coming to light, with both wanting the ball in their hands. Mike Brown, the rookie head coach at the time, often criticized his team in post-game interviews, claiming they didn't fight hard enough. These issues were unpleasant, but what was by far the most awful story was the play of Anthony Bennett. Bennett was horrible in his rookie campaign, missing the first 15 shots of his career, shooting 35% from the field and 24% from 3. Disgustingly bad numbers, and a failed selection at the number 1 spot. Despite these team flaws though, Irving kept up the exciting play, earning the All-Star MVP award and continuing his offensive excellence. His potential still seemed sky high, but Cavs fans wondered if he would leave the team the first chance he could. The feelings surrounding this organization were not confident, and the Cavs needed some luck heading into the 2014 draft lottery. The odds weren't in their favor. Cleveland had just under a 2% chance of landing the top pick. Somehow, their prayers were answered. The Cavs were rewarded with the number 1 pick for the 3rd time in 4 years. The 2014 draft was stacked, with 2 projected superstars in Jabari Parker and Andrew Wiggins. The Cavs took a shot at Wiggins and picked him first overall, with many dubbing him a future superstar. Yet, among this excitement at the newly formed young core, many eyes were looking at a bigger fish to go after, a familiar face, LeBron James. The Kings' paradise in South Beach had been slowly fading. The Heat just got destroyed in the 2014 finals by San Antonio. LeBron could have remained in the beautiful city of Miami and continued to contend in the East, but he was unsatisfied with just that. Before this situation could unravel though, Kyrie Irving signed a 5-year deal with the club on July 1st, 2014. A max contract and a worthy bag for the up-and-coming star player. Kyrie wanted to be the leader that brought them playoff success. However, just a few weeks later, this contract extension was overshadowed by one man's return. On July 11th, 2014, LeBron James signed a 2-year contract with the Cavs, shocking the basketball world. He was back, with one goal in his mind, a championship for Cleveland. It was a decision that left every Cavs fan ecstatic, yet one player was left feeling irritated. Kyrie Irving never wanted LeBron to return. He didn't think the Cavs needed him to begin with. Regardless, now that LBJ was in town, the roster would be tinkered with. Andrew Wiggins and Anthony Bennett, the 2 top picks, were traded to Minnesota in exchange for Kevin Love. Love was an all-star, an offensive-minded power forward, who also had aspirations of making the playoffs. The Cavs now had a big 3 of LeBron James, Kevin Love, and Kyrie Irving. Irving was less than excited about this, but he put his feelings to the side as the Cavs began their quest for a ring. The 2014-15 season arrived with hype. The Cavs went from playoff hopeful to championship contenders in the matter of one summer. The Cavs had all eyes on them from the opening tip, and Kyrie's stats took a jump. He was now a 22 points per game scorer, shooting a scorching hot 41% from downtown. Irving was a superpower on offense, and in the March 2015 game against the defending champion Spurs, he put on an all-time performance. Kyrie scored a then career-high 57 points, shooting 7 of 7 from downtown, an unreal offensive display. Still, this game appeared to be just another heartbreaker for the Cavs, as the team was down 6, with 30 seconds left. The Cavs could have gone to one of the greatest players of all time in LeBron James for the clutch shot on throughout the year, and he was a major factor in the Cavs winning streak that occurred in the second half of the season. season, Cleveland went 34-9 in the last 43, earning 53 wins and the number 2 seed. Kyrie and LeBron had already proven to be a formidable duo in the regular season, but the playoffs were an entirely different picture. Irving had never been in the postseason before, but now, as a fourth-year player, he entered these final 16 games with massive expectations. Anything short of a finals appearance would be an unmitigated disaster, and the Cavs met the Boston Celtics in round 1, a series that concluded rather quickly in sweeping fashion. But when you take a closer look, the final game of the series, Game 4, brought a catastrophe. Kevin Love suffered a dislocated shoulder injury that would sideline him for the rest of the playoffs, and just like that, the Cavs were without their third star. A frustrating injury that Love himself believes was a dirty play by Kelly Olynyk. Needless to say, the Cavs were no longer riding as high as they once were. Every player needed to step up for this playoff run. Round 2 against the Chicago Bulls was up next, with the first 3 games providing little reassurance in the Cavs' title hopes. Chicago won games 1 and 3, Game 3 coming on a heartbreaking Derrick Rose buzzer beater. Rose had outdueled Irving in this game. Kyrie scored a measly 11 points on 3 of 13 shooting, a performance that was unlike Irving's usual self. So what was the cause of this inefficiency? Kyrie had suffered a foot strain and was dealing with knee tendonitis in round 1 versus Boston, but he needed to push through this. In Game 4, the Cavs responded with a game winner of their own. LeBron James hit a corner 2-pointer that very well could have saved their season. If Cleveland lost Game 4, they'd be facing a 3-1 deficit, one that seemed impossible to overcome. Nonetheless, the series was now tied at 2, and the Cavs used this newfound momentum to snatch games 5 and 6 to advance. Irving averaged 17 per game in this series on 43% field goal shooting, below average numbers on a leg injury that needed to heal quickly. The Cavs were now in the Eastern Conference Finals, facing off against the 60-win Atlanta Hawks, and Irving was unavailable. He played just 27 minutes in Game 1, well below his 40 minutes per game average, and missed games 2 and 3. The foot injury was healed, but the knee was still a problem. Luckily for the Cavs, this injury hardly affected them. They swept Atlanta with ease to advance to the NBA Finals. Uncle Drew returned in Game 4 and shot a solid 6 of 11 from the field. The duo of Kyrie and LeBron was now ready to go on the biggest stage. The 2015 Finals arrived with mixed expectations. On one hand, the Cavs were a talented team that had just steamrolled through the Eastern Conference. On the other hand, they were still missing Kevin Love, and their opponent, the 67-win Golden State Warriors, were fully healthy from top to bottom. Game 1 of the Finals was a close battle that saw both teams fight to the end, and Kyrie had what may have been the most clutch play of his career to that point. It didn't come on offense, rather on the defensive side. Irving blocked Stephen Curry as he was driving for a layup. A fantastic rejection on one of the best finishers in the league. Uncle Drew was clutch on both ends and showed it. The Cavs had momentum entering overtime. They were ready to take Game 1 and shock the league. Then, 3.5 minutes into overtime, Irving fell down on a routine drive, holding his knee once he got up. Fans didn't know what to think about it at first, but once it was announced Irving had suffered a left kneecap fracture, panic rose in Cleveland. The guard had added another injury to his growing list, and would now be sidelined for the rest of the finals. As a result of this misfortune, the Cavs lost Game 1, and eventually lost the series in 6. Many spectators believe that had Irving played, the Cavs would have defeated the Warriors and brought a championship home to the city of Cleveland. Instead, this series will forever be highlighted with question marks. For Kyrie Irving, the label of him being injury-prone was becoming louder and louder. Fans worried that if this continued, he'd never be able to tap his potential. What lied ahead for Uncle Drew was an offseason full of hard work and recovery. If the Cavs wanted to win a championship, Irving needed to be 100% healthy for that goal to be achieved. The 2015-16 season began with LeBron James leading the ship. The Cavs went 17-7, and then Kyrie was back. He returned in December of 2015, 6 months after his original injury, and immediately started cooking as if he was never gone. His minutes understandably dipped, which meant his stats followed the same pattern. Kyrie went from 22 to 20 points per game, and 41% from 3 to 32. These drops scare nobody. The regular season for Irving would simply be used as an opportunity to get back to full strength. The Cavs rode on with their healthy Big Three and coasted to a 57-win season. As the months passed by, Irving looked more and more like his usual self, with flashy crossovers and sweet jump shots becoming the norm once again. The 2016 playoffs kicked off with the Cavs as the top dog in the East. They were the number 1 seed, even hungrier than the prior year. In round 1 versus the Detroit Pistons, Kyrie had what may have been his best playoff series to that point, averaging 27 a game, including clutch shots in both games 3 and 4. In game 3, he hit an impossible off-balance 3 to seal the win. In game 4, he drilled a phenomenal shot in Reggie Jackson's face to end the Pistons season, yelling bye-bye to the fans in Detroit. Kyrie Irving didn't have just a clutch gene. No, he was the definition of clutch. And with him and LeBron on the same team, it was pick your poison. Round 2 came and brought another sweep, the Atlanta Hawks being the victim once again. The Cavaliers had an iron fist over the Eastern Conference. LeBron and Kyrie averaged a combined 50 points per game, an unstoppable duo that was now 4 wins away from another finals appearance. The Toronto Raptors were the last team that stood in front of the biggest stage, and the Cavs defeated them in 6. In Game 5, with the series tied at 2, the Cavs' Big Three combined for 71 points in a victory. Just a little over a year prior, Kevin Love and Kyrie both had 0 playoff experience. Now they were leading a booming Cavs team to the finals with fantastic performances. That's right, the Cleveland Cavaliers had made it back to the NBA Finals, ready to unleash their vengeance on a familiar foe, the Golden State Warriors. In the 2015 finals, Kyrie Irving had to sit back and watch as his Cavs were handled in 6 games by Golden State. He couldn't change the results of that series, but now, 1 year later, he was in full control of the outcome. Kyrie averaged an unreal 27 points per game, outdueling the 2-time MVP Steph Curry in the process, shooting 46% from the field and 40% from 3. These numbers should have ensured a win, but through the first 4 games, the Warriors were up 3 games to 1. A loss in the finals for the 2nd straight year could have cataclysmic effects on the Cavaliers franchise, and there was a chance that Kyrie could be shipped out. Irving stepped up, scoring 41 points in Game 5 and 23 in Game 6, both in wins. Kyrie wasn't just doing this to any other team, he was destroying the same Golden State squad that won 73 games in the regular season. The series that was once 3-1 in the Warriors' favor was now tied at 3 each, with Game 7 being a winner go home, lose, and you failed to complete the comeback, letting down the fans of Cleveland once again. Win, and you bring the first ever ring to the Cavaliers franchise, immortalizing yourself in basketball lore as a champion. Kyrie Irving chose the latter, scoring 26 points with 2 threes, one of those triples being the greatest in finals history. With under a minute to play and both teams tied at 89, Kyrie rose up and splashed a 3 over Steph Curry to give the Cavs the lead. This shot ended up going down as a game winner. The Cavs had accomplished the impossible, a championship. LeBron James, Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving, and the Cavs won the championship, knocking off the Golden State Warriors and being the first team in finals history to overcome a 3-1 deficit. If you questioned any observer at the time what they thought about this team, they'd tell you that Kyrie would remain a Cav for the foreseeable future, and that Cleveland had many more titles awaiting them. No one could have guessed the events that would soon follow this triumph. Even during this time, even when Kyrie was a champion, his frustrations were only growing. Following this win, Irving came very close to asking for a trade in the summer of 2016. The idea was discussed with his camp, and they ultimately shelved it. Kyrie's relationship with LeBron was deteriorating, and the attention regarding the 2016 finals may have had something to do with it. Throughout the finals, the storyline was focusing on LeBron and him bringing a title to his hometown. Irving felt overshadowed despite his phenomenal performance. The spotlight was on number 23, not number 2. Still, a trade request now after such success would be premature. Irving wanted to take one more crack at the title. The 2016-17 season wasn't as pleasant for the Cavs as years past, even with their fiery 40-16 start. They finished 11-15 in their final 26 games, with the team looking unmotivated and even sluggish at times. In early 2017, LeBron claimed that the Cavs needed a playmaker, and that the current roster wasn't good enough. These comments likely had little impact on Irving's frustration, but he was constantly reminded that LeBron James was the spokesperson of the team. Despite the second half of the season slump, Irving's stats were still as sharp as ever. He averaged a then career-high 25 a game. In a February 2017 game versus the Wizards, Kyrie scored 23 points, 11 of them coming in overtime. In OT, he went full Uncle Drew mode, hitting a clutch 3 that appeared quite familiar to his 2016 finals shot. Moments like these gave Irving even more confidence that he could be the number 1 option on a championship contender. LeBron was fouled out in this overtime period, which gave Kyrie full opportunity to take over, and he did just that. The Cavs trudged on and finished with 51 wins, which was good enough for the second seed in a weak Eastern Conference. The Cavaliers' dominance in the 2017 playoffs didn't just make the East look weak, it made them appear dreadful. The Cavs destroyed each and every team in their sight. Any question marks surrounding their regular season record was put to the side. The Cavs went 12-1 through the first 3 rounds to cruise to the finals. However, the 2017 finals featured a lopsided defeat. The Warriors, now with former MVP Kevin Durant on their team, beat the Cavs in 5. Golden State was a force to be reckoned with, and the Cavs were no match for their super team. In Game 5, as LeBron and Kyrie were walking out following a heartbreaking loss, James told Irving that they'd be back. Little did he know, this would be the final game of Kyrie's Cavalier career. Following this finals loss in the summer of 2017, the Cavs were quietly shopping Irving in the trade market. Rumors floated around about possible swaps for Paul George of the Indiana Pacers, and once Irving got wind of it, his anger grew. Additionally, Kyrie could sense that things wouldn't be smooth sailing in Cleveland for much longer. LeBron James was set to be a free agent in the summer of 2018, and his eyes were set on Los Angeles. Irving feared that if the king departed, he'd be left in Cleveland with nothing. These factors combined with him wanting to be the leader and feeling overshadowed by LeBron encouraged him to request a trade, and that's exactly what he did. On July 21st, 2017, a bombshell headline was released to the public. Kyrie Irving wanted out from Cleveland. Privately, Irving had threatened to sit out training camp and undergo knee surgery that would sideline him for the rest of the season. He was serious about this, and the Cavs wasted no time, trading him to the Boston Celtics in exchange for Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, and picks. In the blink of an eye, for the first time in his career, Irving was playing for a different team and organization. Kyrie demanded to leave a team that had just gone to 3 straight finals, and he didn't regret a single thing. Kyrie Irving arrived in Boston, Massachusetts in August 2017, with championship expectations abound. He'd be joining a stacked roster with veterans and young guys, and this time around, he was the undisputed leader. The 2017-18 season went along quite smoothly with Irving at the helm. The Celtics were scorching hot, 40-19 at the All-Star break, and Irving was having his best season yet. He was a near 50-40-90 player, averaging 24 a game as the leader of the Celtics. Boston had hopes of a finals appearance, but those aspirations were destroyed in early March, when it was revealed Kyrie was having knee issues. He was sidelined and had surgery in early April, which ended his season, an injury that blindsided the Celtics fandom. It finally appeared that Irving was set to win on his own terms, but was then hit with a disaster that cut his season short. As a result of this injury, critics believed that the Celtics had little chances of going anywhere come playoff time. However, when the postseason came about, Boston shocked the world. They advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals and came one game away from reaching the NBA Finals, eventually losing to none other than LeBron James. A finish like this left the NBA world convinced that the Celtics would be a force to be reckoned with. They achieved a remarkable run without Kyrie Irving and All-Star Gordon Hayward. Hayward had been sidelined since the first game of the season with a leg injury, and was previously putting up fantastic numbers before being injured. He and Irving, along with the rest of the squad, appeared destined for success. This upcoming season brought anticipation of a championship, Irving himself even telling the world that he wanted to re-sign with Boston in September of 2018.
You guys will have me back. I plan on re-signing here next year.
The 2018-19 Boston Celtics were projected by fans to be one of the best teams in the league, yet what unraveled was pure misery and disaster. The team began with a mediocre 10-10 record, and showed no signs of breaking their inconsistency as the season progressed. They won a few, then dropped a few, and the pattern continued. Signs of a toxic locker room also popped up in the form of post-game quotes. Irving claimed the team needed a veteran presence, and that he called up LeBron James to apologize for the way he acted when he was a younger player in Cleveland. An honest and fair comment for sure, but many believe he was taking a shot at the other young players on his team. In February 2019, when questioned about his free agency plans, Irving told the reporters to ask him July 1st. Uncle Drew was once eager to remain a Celtic, but now, just a few months later, he was displeased. The Boston Celtics, a team that was projected by many to be the top seed in the East, won just 49 games and landed the 4th seed. A disaster of a season that to many exposed Kyrie's poor leadership. The playoffs came around and healed no wounds. The Celtics got crushed by the Milwaukee Bucks in round 2, losing in a gentleman's sweep. Irving played horrendously in this series, shooting 35% from the field and 20% from 3. He looked unmotivated and was throwing up bricks with every jump shot. By far the worst playoff series of his career. Kyrie then departed in the 2019 offseason for Brooklyn, with fellow superstar Kevin Durant joining him in the process. A season that seemed destined for greatness was overshadowed by constant drama, and the fingers were pointed at Uncle Drew himself for this collapse. This left many wondering, why did the season go as poorly as it did? In Irving's first press conference with Brooklyn before the 2019-20 season, he shed some light on his mental state during the prior season. Irving revealed that before the 2018-19 season kicked off, he received tragic news regarding his grandfather. George Larson passed away in October 2018, and basketball was the last thing on Kyrie's mind. This understandably affected his game. In his words, the love for basketball and the joy he had from it was sucked away from him. He felt depressed, not allowing anyone to get close to him. He apologized to the Celtics for not communicating his pain. He said he failed at being a leader, and that he took the whole ordeal as a learning experience. These words shed some light on why Kyrie's final season with the Celtics went as poorly as it did, and he was ready to move on now that he was in Brooklyn. Kyrie's first season in Brooklyn was without Kevin Durant, who was recovering from a torn Achilles. Irving scored 27 points per game in just 20 games played total for the Nets, suffering yet another shoulder injury that ended his season. For all of his fantastic skills he brought to the table, it was clear that Irving was in fact what many feared: injury-prone. In the 2020-2021 season, Kevin Durant made his triumphant return, with Kyrie happily taking a back seat. A few weeks after the season began, former MVP and superstar James Harden was traded to the team. This formed what many consider to be the best big three in NBA history. The trio went on to only play 8 games together in their first season, but when they were on the court, they were electric. However, injuries ravaged their 2021 playoff run. Kyrie and Harden both dealt with ankle and hamstring injuries in round 2 versus the Bucks. Brooklyn lost in 7. Kevin Durant's 35 points per game weren't good enough to defeat Milwaukee. In Game 7, KD hit what looked like a game-winning 3, but upon further review, his foot was just barely on the line. Had he been just a few more inches behind the line, the Nets would have certainly won and advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals. Nonetheless, the 2020-21 season ended for Brooklyn with just that, a what if. The 2021-22 season saw the Big Three once again being ravaged by James Harden hamstring problems, Kevin Durant knee injuries, and of course, Kyrie Irving deciding against getting a shot. The Nets started dropping games as a result of their inconsistent lineups with players constantly being in and out, and James Harden got frustrated. He was upset that Kyrie was only able to play road games due to his decision, and wasn't interested in carrying the team as the #1 option with KD injured. Harden requested a trade, being sent to Philadelphia, meaning that the Big Three that was once hyped to be one of the greatest ever only played 16 games together total. Once again, critics blame Kyrie, with many articles coming out that accused the Beard and Uncle Drew of having beef. Before a game against the Celtics the prior season, Irving burnt sage, which is a Lakota ritual that cleanses negative energy. Kyrie did this because it was a part of his native culture. To James Harden, reports state that he looked at Irving like he had 3 heads, and a weird vibe began forming between the two. Irving denied these claims and called the media puppets. Kyrie Irving's career will go down as one of the most polarizing in NBA history. It was undoubtedly a success story, with his accolades, highlights, and countless clutch shots. But there were so many moments that left spectators confused on Irving's decision-making. Fans were left puzzled as to why Irving never wanted LeBron on the Cavs in the first place, and questioned why he requested a trade after 3 straight finals appearances. Observers wondered why a situation that started out so promising in Boston ended with drama and a toxic locker room. One of the best Big Threes in NBA history in Brooklyn also ended on a disastrous note, with James Harden wanting out after just 1 year. These situations are all unique in their own way, with some blaming Kyrie, and others blaming the environment around him. No matter if you label him problematic or misunderstood, what cannot be denied is his talent in the game of basketball. When he does suit up to play, Kyrie Irving dazzles fans on a nightly basis with his remarkable handles. He's a one-of-a-kind athlete, and even with the controversy he may or may not bring, his game and accolades speak for themselves.